Good morning. We have three charts for today for the clean energy industries, and they involve how China dominates in the supply chain of raw materials and in the processing, and then by production of almost everything in the new economy going forward. The tariffs and the laws and the big programs that we enact in the United States, like the Inflation Reduction Act, whereby we hope to buy some time for our own domestic industries to catch up, it's really hard to see how they will work very well, because it's not merely that we need some factories in the United States and in Europe. It's the entire chain that we need to build. And China's got all those chains. And eventually, as we move up the manufacturing chains, we will run into China everywhere. We need a Chinese company to do something, to perform a key process or function that is vitally important to the production. The first chart is from the Visual Capitalist via mining.com. We'll link to all these in the video description. And it's very simple. These are the key elements needed to produce clean energy: copper, nickel, cobalt, lithium, and some rare earth metals. China doesn't show up there on the left side, except in the rare earth segment. That's the left side, the sources of these elements. But we move to the right side of the chart, and it's here where China is. The materials come out of the ground in other countries, often by a Chinese company there. Then they're put on a railroad built by China, to a port built by China, and put on a ship that goes back and forth to China, where they're unloaded and refined and processed. In rare earths, we do see an American flag here finally. The US does have about 12% of the world's rare earth processing, but our production of rare earths is basically zero. The next chart comes from Bloomberg, and these are the key technologies required for solar, electric cars, wind, and clean hydrogen. There's no good news for us there either for anyone who hopes to build out our industries. So on this Bloomberg graphic, China is the black bar going across. The United States is in red, and we can see for ourselves how much work we have to do if we're going to be making an impact anywhere on this chart. Now, the first four categories here on Bloomberg are what we need to build solar panels: solar modules and cells, solar wafers, ingots, and polysilicon. You need all of those to build a solar panel. So even if you were determined to set up a solar panel assembly plant in Norway or North Carolina, you'll need to get components from China to do it. We can produce polysilicon, but then that is shipped off to China to make the solar wafers and the ingots. So we can't get excited here about our share of polysilicon, because we can't do anything with it without the Chinese. The next lines on the chart: battery cells, battery components, lithium, cobalt, nickel. We're not building an electric vehicle, anything really, that needs a big battery without all those things. Next is wind. The nacelle is the housing for the wind turbines. The generator, the brakes, the gearbox, the components that transform kinetic energy from wind into mechanical energy and then into electricity, that all goes into the nacelle. The last thing, the hydrogen electrolyzer. These are devices that use electricity and split water into hydrogen and oxygen so that the hydrogen can be burned for fuel. The last chart comes from the International Energy Agency. What we're looking at here is production going forward to 2030. It takes a long time to bring these technologies online and then to the market. The Inflation Reduction Act has lots of subsidies for companies in the US to try. And this is a forecast based on projects that have been announced, but not yet producing. And for solar, the IEA forecasts that China's dominance here will grow even further, slightly, from 79% to 80%. In wind, nothing is moving at all. In batteries, the IEA predicts that US will go from 7% to 15%. The US is in yellow. And that if the US goes up by 8, China will drop by that much, going from 76 to 68%. The first question, of course, will be what the prices are from these new battery plants in the US and where they will be getting the components from to make them. It is in batteries and in graphite in particular where China has such a dominant supply chain advantage. And they have years of experience in refining and in mass production. Back to the Bloomberg chart. So battery cathode, battery anode, those are the terminals. The anode is the negative terminal on a discharging battery. And you need refined graphite to build those. Cathodes, the US is at 0. Anode, also 0. So can US plants manufacture batteries that can compete in any way with Chinese prices? If the idea is to manufacture the batteries in cars only for the US market and to ring fence electric car makers for anything coming out of China in perpetuity, then that might work, as long as US car buyers don't mind paying 3 times more for a car than they have to in perpetuity. The Inflation Reduction Act. That's the real name of the thing. They actually called it that. Be good.
Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. Everyone who asks receives. He who seeks